This is Dan. Before we get to the podcast, got to tell you about FanDuel. The NFL season isn't over yet. If your season-long fantasy football league just isn't cutting it, get your mojo back at FanDuel.com and pick a new team every week. Joey Watson, Jay Watts from New York, played fantasy football on FanDuel for less than 2 weeks last season and won over $30,000. Join him and the hundreds of thousands of other users who have already won money. Go to FanDuel.com and click on the microphone in the upper right-hand corner. Use our code AROUND and sign up now. A new user special. It's ending soon. FanDuel will match your first deposit dollar up to $200. That's $200 free. Offer is only good for the first 50 people that use our code AROUND. Don't forget to use our code. What is it, Mark?
AROUND.
FanDuel.com, where every week is a new season. That's FanDuel.com. Sign up today.
The Around the NFL podcast cleans asbestos from the factory of sadness.
Welcome back to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hanzus, and I am joined by a room filled with some heroes. Marc Sessler to my left. Gregg Rosenthal to my right. What up, boys?
What is happening? Let's be honest, some of the best heroes you've ever been around.
You guys
I'm not cleaning asbestos in any building.
Awesome.
What a fun afternoon at the NFL media offices to watch this Cowboys-Lions game especially.
Yes, it was the game that saved Wild Card Weekend, and a controversial game at that. I get a feeling that Dino Blandino's got a busy week ahead of him after some of the events of that game. But a big comeback victory by the Cowboys, and today was Wesseling, of course, with the Bengals playing their annual Wild Card game. You can probably guess if you're maybe you're such a fan of this podcast that you don't watch the games, and then is there anybody that's like this? You think don't watch the games and then listen to the show to get the results?
I doubt they listen to get the results, but there might be some overseas that they don't get to watch it live, but they do listen to the podcast.
That's true. So 4 games to get to. This is our Wild Card Weekend wrap-up show. Chris Wesseling, of course, on Wesseling, a holy day, he was off. And we're certainly not going to check.
That was by accident, but it worked out well.
Well, around 8 a.m., we received a color photo on his Twitter feed of what seemed to be a vast Bloody Mary bar at a local establishment.
Yes,
and it was roughly 8:15 in the morning.
I don't imagine that he touched that. I mean, he's not a guy that likes to imbibe, but he is off. We're not going to get him on the phone just to play it safe. But Wes, we can imagine, will sleep with a smile on his face. Almost like he got a Red Ryder BB gun on Christmas Day because we had the Red Rifle in Cincinnati to thank for that. But let's start, as I called it, the game that saved Wild Card Weekend in Arlington, Big D, where Tony Romo threw 2 touchdown passes to Terrence Williams, including one late in the fourth quarter, giving the Cowboys 24-20 win in the Wild Card round, eliminating the Detroit Lions in a wild game that I feel like people will be talking about for a long time. Obviously, you had the controversial flag pickup on the pass interference call that would have really put the Lions in a great spot. And then Tony Romo continues to rewrite the narrative of his career this season, especially the last couple of months. Greg, I'll start with you. Tony Romo leads the Cowboys past the Lions. Is this the new Tony Romo, and does that make the Cowboys a dangerous team here down the stretch?
No, they're definitely dangerous. They're an offense-first team, which is what I like in the playoffs. Their defense didn't look great today. But on a day where I thought Romo was outplayed by Matthew Stafford, Romo was the guy in the third and fourth quarter making all the big plays. On 3rd and long, he gets a touchdown. On 4th and 6, he gets the big play to Jason Witten. And for them to win on a day where Dez Bryant didn't do a lot, DeMarco Murray didn't do a lot, and the offensive line didn't play great, and they still come back from 14 points, give the man some love.
I feel for Lions fans, though, because for a team that has had no success in the postseason, for most adults living in Detroit and around the area, you've seen nothing.
Right.
And this was the reversed pass interference call. That's going to be talked about in Motown for months.
Well, let's talk about it.
Sure.
What did you guys think of it when you saw it?
Well,
the thing that killed me was just the lack of explanation.
If
they explained it,
weird.
Right. Your instincts are they throw the flag initially. That to me, I need a clear explanation, and so did Jim Caldwell.
And they announced it.
It's a 20-7 lead, I believe, at this point for the Lions. If they call it, they did call it, but if they didn't pick up the flag, the Lions would have had it inside, I believe, or around the red zone. And they would
20-14 lead at the time.
Okay, 20-14 lead at the time. But I
2017, sorry.
It was 2017, yeah.
So I think here's the two parts of this. First of all, if you're a Lions fan, you have every right to be angry, and the people were going nuts on Twitter about this, that basically the game was handed to the Cowboys under nefarious circumstances, which is silly, but also I get the frustration about the call. The other part of it, though, that really drives me crazy, it's still, after they pick up that flag, 4th and 1 from around midfield, and that's a chance where you have to go win a game. You have Joique Bell, who's running well in that game, but Jim Caldwell punts the ball away.
Well, they try to get an offsides initially,
right,
and it doesn't work, so they're sitting at 4th and 6. They go for the punt. I agree.
I thought that was gutless, and I feel like especially in these type of games, that's how you lose.
There was a lot of time left, but people agree.
What a contrast, though, between Jim Caldwell and Jason Garrett. The football gods frown on the punt on 4th and 1, but how about Jason Garrett? He goes for it on 4th and goal on the goal line in the third quarter, late in the third quarter.
Yes.
By now, that play is almost forgotten. They get that. 4th and 6. The logic was you go for it there, but I've seen Jason Garrett and other types of coaches punt or even try to kick a long field goal. He goes for it there. So the Cowboys went for the win, and as much as that call, it was a terrible non-call. I mean, it was an obvious penalty.
Yeah.
As much as that killed the Lions, they scored 3 points in the second half, and they had 3 turnovers in the second half. I'm counting the Stafford fumble because technically they had 2 turnovers. 3 turnovers and 3 points. The Cowboys, on the other hand, scored 17 points in their last 3 drives.
Right. I mean,
so what do you want to do? Make a stop.
I mean, Detroit's defense, the one thing that's hard, I think, if you're a Lions fan, too, if this game had been 30-7 and what some thought would happen to Detroit, they played the game of their season. Defensively, 6 sacks, 10 hits on Romo. I mean, they controlled the game for a big portion of it. They just couldn't do it down the stretch.
But they let down in the end.
Yeah.
And, I mean, back to Romo. I mean, this guy has taken more heat than anybody in this league over the past 10 years, I'd say. And I think this is something to watch now. Now, they're going to Green Bay next week where, very interesting, Dallas 8-0 on the road, Green Bay 8-0 at home. I think how many times we see it every year, there is the quarterback of the team that gets hot, and we're seeing Romo as a guy to me that could potentially be that guy. As insane as that would be, and if you imagine how he would be covered and how people would be going crazy if it was the Cowboys involved in that type of Flacco-like run. But he can be that guy, and I think they're going to hang in that game because I think Romo is an MVP-level quarterback playing his best football of his career.
Well, and for him to hang in that game and then to move on potentially probably to Seattle, if they ever were to get into the Super Bowl, they will have proven it.
We're looking far ahead here.
I don't think it's that crazy because I think Dallas is not a fluke team on any level. They are built to win these type of games if their running game is working.
I don't think they're a fluke team either, but I think Cowboys fans and Romo and everyone should enjoy this game because it was a 14-point comeback. This is only the second playoff win of his career, first in 5 years. And, this might be it. This might be the high point in what has been a really surprising, amazing season. And the way that they did it today, it just showed a little more mental toughness. The defense, which I think is a problem, and it's going to be a big problem in Green Bay, did not play well in the first half, but they did play well in the second half, and they got the big sacks at the end when they needed it.
Another guy who I think gets taken to town year after year in Dallas is Jerry Jones, and for a good reason for a lot of it. But this is a guy that, against the outcry of the fans, stuck with Jason Garrett, stuck with Romo. I think he probably wanted to draft a quarterback, namely Johnny Manziel. Thank God they didn't do that. But this is a guy, Jerry Jones, that he's made some bad signings. But you know what? At this point, with the drafting of the offensive line, a little bit of credit to the owner. I think he's finally built a team that he's talked about.
It's a nice year. You have the governor of New Jersey bouncing up and down with him in the box.
Sure.
Everyone's having a great time.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a little weird. But
not likable.
But honestly, Greg, keep politics.
Yeah,
I don't care about politics.
Let's go down the political road.
I don't care about politics. I lived in New York.
JFK.
I lived in New York 10 years. You got the governor of New Jersey cheering on a Cowboys fan. There's a lot of Eagles fans, Jets fans, Giants fans that don't like that.
It's an awkward look.
By the way, here is the pool report. Referee Pete Morelli with pool reporter Todd Archer after the game. The question, can you talk about the decision to overturn the call, the pass interference call, and why you overturned the call? The back judge threw his flag for defensive pass interference. We got other information from another official from a different angle that thought the contact was minimal and didn't warrant pass interference. He thought it was face guarding. So I guess their decision was that the flag was thrown too quickly, and they needed to confer, and that's why he's picked up. But it's still done strangely because there wasn't enough talking and communication.
I think the biggest problem was they didn't announce why they were picking up. It was a total mystery. Right. And then Mike Pereira, happened to be on the game, mentioning, hey, this is a crew that hasn't worked together before. It's just a bad look. And when you watch the play again and again, it looks clearly like a bad
Well, that's
call.
the other side of it. There was a lot of legitimate reason to potentially call pass interference.
Oh, no, it was a bad call. Should have been pass interference.
They punt the ball away, okay. They give up the touchdown, okay. But you still have 2.5 minutes left. You have timeouts. You have the 2-minute warning. You get a gift from God, which is DeMarcus Lawrence recovering the fumble when Stafford gets sacked, I think, on the second play of the final or the second to last possession, stupidly trying to run with it, loses the ball, so they get a second life.
Oh, man.
And then Stafford, who's had some nice moments at the ends of games, he loses another fumble 3 minutes later, and then the game's over.
And that's on the Cowboys' defense in terms of giving them credit, and it's on the Lions' offensive line, which I think had a really good day for most of the day. That pressure was getting to Stafford quickly. I don't think Stafford played poorly. I said it. I think he outplayed Romo overall. He had a nice game for the most part. Stafford was accurate, made it 3 or 4 really good plays. He had that play where he ran over the Cowboys defender.
I mean, he showed up. The whole Lions team proved that they're more than what I think a lot of people, including myself, thought they were coming into this.
I thought when they have a 2-touchdown lead, though, that they'd be able to salt it away with their running game against that Cowboys defense, and you have to give the Cowboys defense credit for getting some stops. And I think it's weird, but the biggest play in the game was the touchdown by the Cowboys at the end of the first half.
Yes.
Because that came out of nowhere. They were getting dominated. It was 14-0. That came out of nowhere, and it made it a game where it really wasn't. I know it was 17-7 at half, but that gave them life.
And Terrell Austin, the Lions defensive coordinator, did a great job. They were in Romo's face constantly in that first half, and that was part of the reason that was so shocking, too, because I feel like right before that, Romo he was ducking for his life, and all of a sudden, bang, 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was, and the game takes on a different complexion. So this one, if you're a Lions fan, this one stings.
I feel for you, Kevin Patra.
Yeah, Kevin Patra, I hope he's probably not going to the gym tomorrow morning. That's all I'm going to say. He's taking the day off, and he deserves it because that one was a killer loss.
Probably been in multiple street fights tonight.
And Ndamukong Suh, who had some big plays in this game, had one great sequence where he got the couple sacks. He was emotional after the game. He was crying. He had to leave the podium because he was crying. And then he comes back a couple minutes later once he composes himself, and he just said, this is a result I never saw coming. Like, he was that confident. And I think he knows that this is probably it for him in Detroit, and they had this great chance, and they had so many plays where if they just made one play, they probably win the game, and they didn't make any of those.
It was almost like the two kind of loser franchises of the last 10, 15 years, and it's just like, who is going to figure out a way not to win this game? And it was the Lions. This is a game the Lions should have won. The Cowboys stole it, and that's the way this
You think
game
the TV
works.
people are excited about Cowboys-Packers
Oh, my
just
God.
a little bit?
That's incredible.
We should all be excited about the Cowboys being involved. This is fun.
I am.
It's fantastic.
I am. Ultimately, I'm happy. And I'm not a big believer in, hey, you built something this season. Okay, you can build on that next season because you start all over, and usually it's really hard to get back to this spot. But I will strike a note of optimism. I think this Lions team is in pretty good position. If you look at what they have on offense, they're a really young offense. They're going to be there for a while. They have DeAndre Levy. They have Ziggy Ansah, who broke out with a big game today. I mean, I think they're in pretty good shape.
Won't have Sue, though.
You trust Jim Caldwell to take this team to a Super Bowl?
Well, he's gone to the Super Bowl before.
I saw him blink on the sideline at one point.
It's too bad, Caldwell. You got to go for the fourth down. Ugh.
Yep. All right, moving on. So let's stick in the NFC. We'll cover the other NFC playoff game. This one was on Saturday where the Carolina Panthers, 7-8-1 on the season, still got them a division title, and they got the Cardinals in their building. We all thought the Cardinals, with their fourth quarterback of the year, Ryan Lindley, would be in trouble, and they were, because Newton threw for 2 touchdowns, and Carolina's defense did the rest, setting an NFL record for the fewest yards allowed in a postseason game. Final score 27-16 in favor of the Panthers over the Cardinals, who go home. The Cardinals, who were, of course, 11-1, Mark, at one point. They end up at, I guess, 11-5. And it's all over now. And, Mark, I ask you, how difficult was it watching a Ryan Lindley team try to lead a comeback on the road in the playoffs? Well, and will we ever see anything like that again?
I don't know. I mean, it's another example that injuries can turn, at the quarterback position, can turn what was a very solid, well-coached, resilient team and what should have been the team of ATL into an absolute punching bag. I mean, there was no confidence that they were going to able to do anything down the second half of this game against Carolina. And you know, you talk about we want to see the Cowboys get on to play Green Bay. That's exciting. Thank God that we're getting the Panthers next week. They match up okay with Seattle. I'm not sure they're going to win that game on any level, but
that's an interesting game. Cam, Russell Wilson, the two defenses.
They're running the ball well, and they're peaking defensively at the right time.
Carolina's first playoff win, 9 years. Cam Newton's first playoff win. So, you know, that's, you know, from a confidence standpoint. And listen, they still haven't really beaten anybody good. I'm sorry, this was not a good Cardinals win. And, like, I caught some heat on Twitter I was a little annoyed that Cam was, you know, posing for photos with his teammates on the sideline at the end of the game. It's basically the equivalent of you taking your buddies out hunting and then you shoot, like, a deer that has a broken leg. And then you, like, celebrate in front of the dead deer. That's
easy for you to say, but imagine if the Jets just won their first playoff game in not 8 years. You wouldn't care about who they played. You would just be celebrating. That's a great moment for the entire franchise and for Cam Newton. I don't care who they played.
Well, no, there are.
Right? I mean, that's their moment. That's their big moment of the last 8 or 9 years.
And if Wes was here, he would agree, and Wes would break out his he's a preening schmo line. And I'm not getting all over Cam Newton about it, but I just want to see Cam Newton and the Panthers beat a real team in the playoffs. They can do whatever they want if they take care of business next week in Seattle. But I'm just saying, come on.
So you're not buying Carolina as this hidden juggernaut here in the NFC?
They could be. They could give Seattle a run, but I also think they haven't been tested really during this 5-game winning streak.
I think there's a balance between what I was reading from your guys' Twitter account on Saturday from the bar and the thought that this team is, you know, some sort of juggernaut. Because it seemed like you guys weren't giving them much credit at all. To me, their defensive performance, even though it was against Lindley, is still noteworthy. This is an NFL team that had 400 yards last week against San Francisco. When Seattle killed Lindley in Arizona on Sunday Night Football, people couldn't stop tripping over themselves to talk about how good Seattle looks, and now they're the team to beat. And yet a game where they were historically good. I know it was Lindley, but they gave up 78 yards. So I think that's worth noting, that they stopped the running game, they stopped Lindley, they did everything they could.
It's a team that is peaking defensively, so it really was an awful situation for Arizona to walk into. But this was, you'll never see, we could watch the NFL playoffs for 20 years before we see another quarterback as bad as Ryan Lindley.
I saw one 2 years ago, Joe Webb.
All right, and what happened there?
Same thing, pretty much.
Well, I'm saying, like, when these things happen.
Same thing. It was a total blah. You're right. I mean, these things happen, but I'm going to give the credit.
It's bad luck for Arizona. You get stuck with a guy who shouldn't even be on a roster starting your playoff game.
And by the way, you know, Kerwin Williams is involved as well, 10 for 23. Larry Fitzgerald, the poor guy, he gets open and he's getting airmailed over his head. Michael Floyd just disappeared this season. There just wasn't anything going on Arizona's side.
And Dan and I were not, I don't know what you perceive to be negativity towards the Panthers. Not at all. I mean, number one, the first thing when Dan met me at the tavern that we watched this game, we both admitted that Luke Kuechly is a handsome
very
gentleman.
Attractive.
Let's start right there.
In fact, there was a table.
Clark Kent, by the way, just so you know.
Okay, I can see that.
Cam Superman, but Luke Kuechly is legitimately Clark Kent.
Very fetching.
There was a table of girls at the tavern that we were at, all wearing Kuechly jerseys, and I'm like, oh wow. First of all, Panthers fans in Los Angeles, that's weird. Kuechly fans, makes sense. You could add it up. But then at one point, Arizona scored their touchdown. They were all cheering. And I was like, I'm not sure.
Well, there was some disconnect in terms on that table's part of following what was happening.
I mean, I'm not an expert on male attractiveness. That's really.
Oh, of course not.
That's Dan's role in the group.
Yes, that's true. Actually.
He often a lot of comments, but that Kuechly Cam,
I keep it real.
That Kuechly Cam combination as your two franchise pillars, you could do an historical thing. Could you come up with a better looking duo than that? The ladies love Cam Newton.
Cam is an excellent looking man as well.
So that's all I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying you got to give credit to the team. Not only Kuechly, forget the looks. I guess what I'm saying is you can.
Yeah, what are you saying?
You can take away the Cardinals' offense, and
hell's going on out here?
You could still point out Thomas Davis is playing like crazy the last 5 or 6 weeks. You can talk about this guy Trey Boston who keeps making huge plays. They do have some guys coming together, and I think they could be a little problematic for the Seattle offense.
think we agreed that the defense, number one, good coaching job. They've taken a lot of young, inexperienced guys, and they're playing well. But I look at look, they're running the ball with Jonathan Stewart, 123 yards on Saturday, but no one had more than 39 yards receiving for Carolina.
Wasn't a good day for Cam.
It wasn't a great day for him, but also, so you're going to go deal with this Seattle defense next. Number one, they shut down the run well. Do you trust the Panthers to get out of dark corners with a passing game? I don't know.
No, Cam Newton needs to play a lot better. He had a C-, D+ game. I mean, that's where. I mean, he didn't play well. He would admit that. I actually thought
a sideline at the end of the game. I thought he played the greatest game of all time. But
see, if you were listening, which you were at bar, you can't hear it. His post-game interview, I was actually kind of impressed with his maturity. In the interview right after the game with the sideline reporter, when he said, "I need to play a lot better. My mechanics were off. I missed too many throws." That was the first thing out of his mouth, was that he didn't really have a good game. But the team, played well.
How about Dave Gettleman, the general manager? I mean, this was a team we wrote off at the middle of the season. I think Rivera, too. They did a nice job recovering what could have been a completely lost campaign here.
And what a sad time for the Cardinals, though. I mean, I've said it a million times now that the difference between Stanton and Lindley was bigger than the difference between Palmer and Stanton. They had no chance to win that game. I mean, I give up that. And if that's the last moment for Larry Fitzgerald in a Cardinals uniform, it's just kind of... What a lame way to go out.
I think this Cardinals team will be back, though.
Yeah, it all depends with Carson Palmer's health. I mean, 2 ACL reconstructions now, and he's going to be in his mid-30s. But it will be, I would imagine, it's going to be a breath of fresh air when all these guys get back to camp and you have Carson Palmer hopefully healthy and on the field.
A functional quarterback.
Because this is not the first time Larry Fitzgerald has dealt with this in his Cardinals career. Playing with these, as Bobby the Brain Heenan used to say in WWF, Hammond-eggers. These type of guys, they're just not going to take you anywhere.
What does that even mean? A ham and egger?
Ham and egger is like they're so easy. They're like breakfast, ham and egg.
He's just a workman that he eats breakfast and then does a day laborer's type
exactly
job.
what it means.
I love Bruce Arians, but Carson Palmer is going to be 35 years old, coming off 2 torn ACLs. I mean,
hey, Arians said at the combine you don't really play for another 4 seasons.
You don't really know what you're going to have with him, so I hope they get another quarterback in there, if nothing else, just so they have an option. Other than Logan Thomas, apparently, when this stuff comes up.
I hope it's not Sam Bradford.
Logan Thomas, his dad, was the real hero here, tweeting from the game, at the game, that there's no way they're making the comeback with this guy behind center.
Oh, no.
Talking about
NFL dads, there needs to be like a etiquette class for a handful of NFL dads that just step way out of bounds at various times.
Yeah, and he made another reply to someone where he just said, why did they draft this kid? He made a huge mistake 3 weeks ago. He doesn't know what they're thinking.
What if we took Logan Thomas's dad and Larry Fitzgerald Sr. and then just got some cameras on him and put him in a house in Malibu?
Got a podcast that might do better than ours.
Mike Vick's brother in that.
Yes,
Marcus involved. Oh, this is a great show.
Yeah.
Get RG3's dad in there.
NFL Now is looking for programming. If any of you guys out there are listening,
all in the NFL family.
We want executive producer titles. Or Dan.
That's where the money is, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
We just need to get attached to the project and then just cash in on the back end with the DVDs and VOD.
Rack up a few Emmys.
Yeah.
Oh, Emmy time. That's right.
Are the reality shows get Emmys?
I'm sure we could find a way to
Top
get an
Chef
Emmy
always says they get a lot of Emmys. That's a reality show.
It's a great show, Shark Tank. Have I told you about that?
Yeah, we've heard about it once or twice, Dave.
All right, let's move on. Let's head to the AFC, and we're gonna we'll start with the Sunday game, which a great day for Chris Wesseling. It is Westivus. The Cincinnati Bengals, for the 4th straight year under Andy Dalton, leave the playoffs after 1 round. This time it was Andrew Luck and the Colts taking care of business. Luck threw for 376 yards and a touchdown. 26-10 win for the Colts over the Bengals on Sunday in Indy. Mark, you feel strongly that what we saw today is really the last thing the Bengals really need to see from Andy Dalton, right?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what the referendum is, what we're looking for. With this team. 4 straight seasons. Today's game is not entirely on Andy Dalton, but for everyone that we wrote an article, I basically said, move on from this guy, or at least bring someone in to seriously challenge him, and not some 4th-round rookie. But you got to think about the fact that you have a very complete team here with a lot of talent, that this is the guy that's holding you back. 4.4 yards per attempt today. It's not just a thing. I mean, you get him into a big spot. The Bengals crumbled. They were injury-riddled today. But Dalton, across the way, you've got Andrew Luck and other big quarterbacks around the league that will their teams to victories, no matter who's on the field. With Dalton, he is incapable of it. So how much more does anyone need to see? Do you want to do a 5th season of this? I don't.
The bar is so low for Dalton that everyone after the game saying, well, this one's not on Andy Dalton. And I get that, because it's not totally. It was a complete team loss. Everything the Bengals did defensively, running game, everyone's hurt, was bad. It was a miracle that they only lost by 16. On the other hand, he had 4.4 yards per attempt, and after the game, Marvin Lewis said, well, he thought Dalton played a good game, basically, because he avoided a turnover. And if that's the bar for your $100 million contract quarterback, it's like, that's just not how the NFL works anymore.
This is if you're a Bengals fan, the frustration is so easy. You know, obviously he's not working with a full stable of receivers, but the checkdowns, the Gio Bernard over and over again in 3rd and long scenarios where they're not even sniffing the sticks. And, you know, this is just who he is. It's like he did take a few deep shots, but none of them really came close to hitting. And I will say Dalton really needed Jeremy Hill to deliver a big game, and Hill he wasn't able to do it. 13 for 47. That's not going to do it. He did get in the end zone.
Yeah, one carry in the second quarter. It was crazy. They went away from him. But when they were running, it wasn't working either. It was 8 rushes for 11 yards for the second and third quarter combined.
Well, I think, listen, when you don't have A.J. Green in there and suddenly Vontae Davis basically is erasing Mohamed Sanu, you don't have Jermaine Gresham, Tyler Eifert's been out he's gone for the season. You know, I understand that Andy Dalton didn't have a full helping of weapons around him. And Hugh Jackson, as a play caller, first a quarter and a half, did an outstanding job of mixing in these players you'd never even heard of. Like they were making plays, but that only works for a quarter or two when your quarterback cannot make plays on passing downs.
We shouldn't underrate the people that were out of this game, though. Not only Green, but Gresham, their second leading receiver. Dane Sanzenbacher, who's at least been around, would have been a better option than some of their guys. Marvin Jones hasn't been there all year. Tyler Eifert hasn't been there all year. I mean, that's 4 of their top 5 or 6 receiving options. So it's a disaster.
Let me ask you something. So you think that if A.J. Green were in this game, let's just start.
I was going to pick him.
Well, I did pick them, and number one, I'm irritated that I fell for this because it was ill-conceived on my part. But
I'm
I don't
not sure
think
what you even fell for, because you've been against the Bengals as a team to take seriously all season, and you are no Dalton fan. You've been on the record on that. Why did you even do this?
I thought that there was too much of a tipping point of the Bengals cannot win in January, and the same old thing that we say every year. But then that's exactly what happened. They were extremely frustrated, and you cannot sell this fan base on the same formula next season.
Here's what happened. These are human beings that had targets today in the Bengals game.
Humans with targets.
Ryan Hewitt.
Targeted.
Rex Burkhead.
Targeted.
Who was great for part of this game.
Kevin Brock.
Targeted.
Brandon Tate.
Targeted.
Greg Little.
Targeted.
And Kobe Hamilton.
I
left out
Mohamed
Sanu.
That last guy.
No, he's a real person.
That guy was made up.
He had 2 targets.
So, yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and this is why I don't agree with you, Mark, and I'm sick of defending Andy Dalton because I'm annoyed watching him, too, at this point. But this is not the game to bury Andy Dalton's career in Cincinnati because it was a stacked deck against him.
I'm not saying...
And a better quarterback maybe finds a way to make it work, but you got to be a damn good quarterback. Like Andrew Luck, maybe, and maybe we should talk about the Colts.
We should, but one thing, it's not just this game that I'm saying this. You have a 4-year sample size for Andy Dalton, and we talked about this 2 years ago. He hit his ceiling as a rookie.
Yeah,
that's what concerns me.
We apologize to Colts fans.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Colts. On to the Colts.
Talk about you plenty right now. We're going to talk about you all week. You guys...
Probably just talking about Tony Romo.
You can't complain about anything when you get Peyton Manning and then he leaves and you get Andrew Luck. I mean, give me a break. We shouldn't talk about you. You guys are so lucky.
Andrew Luck is so good. And I wrote about this after the game. It still drives me crazy with jealousy that the Colts fans somehow got Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck back-to-back through just a wild series of events over 1 year. But this guy, and this wasn't his greatest statistical game, but it's just amazing to watch what he does. And there was one play in particular that really put the game really away with how bad Cincinnati was playing. It was a touchdown pass about 40 yards to Moncrief in which Luck faced some pressure. He moved up in the pocket, climbed the pocket. Then he had someone diving at his feet from behind. And
hanging on to his leg.
Yeah, as he's falling down, right before he falls down, he spots Moncrief. Perfect pass, hits him in stride, and he was somewhat covered on the play. Touchdown. And after the game, Chaz Pagano says Well, that's, he's a magician. He's a maestro. That's what Andrew Luck does. The guy is awesome. And another team, and I know they're going next week, they're going to Denver. Luck is 0-2 in the postseason on the road so far in his career. But another team, you cannot count the Colts out because their quarterback is so good.
And he makes it look easy. He finished with 376 yards. And you know what the story of the first half was for the Colts offense to some degree was T.Y. Hilton and Luck could not get on the same page. At one point, Hilton had 3 catches off 10 targets, left about 70-something yards and a touchdown on the field, maybe 2. Hilton still ends up with 100 yards.
Right.
Luck, it's like this is when they're clicking. The Colts, I would not want to be the Patriots. I would not want to be the Broncos. I wouldn't want to deal with this team.
Well, not having a pass rush against Luck is just
killer.
A suicide mission, and the Bengals had no pass rush, and that's why it's on their defense, too. The defense didn't have a good game, but I thought this was Luck's best game of the entire season. And I threw that opinion, because he had some better statistical games, I threw that opinion by a blogger, a Colts blogger, Nate Dunleavy from Colts Authority, who I really trust, and he agreed with me, so that made me feel better. Dan can actually look. You see these chicken scratches? I have these little notebooks.
It looks like the ramblings of a madman.
I do little notes that don't really mean anything, but I keep track of what I consider a good pass. I have a very high bar for this. And Luck had 6.5 in this game, which was the most I've had by anyone.
Wait, does that mean he had half a good pass at one point?
Yeah, I give halves for
that's weird.
Good additions of routine deep outs or something.
We need a name for this.
Only 8 bad passes. Anyways, that's the best ratio anyone's had in any game that I've done all year for what it's worth. It's just my made up stuff, but it stuck out to me that he had that many great plays without almost any bad throws. Without many.
If someone told me this weekend that
Dan looks perplexed.
I'm still. Your writing is amazing to me.
If we were to see playoff action involving Trent Richardson, Brandon Whedon, Josh Cribbs, Greg Little, and Rob Chudzinski, I would have thought that old Browns team from 2 seasons ago suddenly got hot. But no, other teams picked up the trash. Greg Little should not be on the football field, but I thought Cribbs looked pretty good for the Colts today. He's given them a little life in the return game.
He's okay.
He's given them a little life. He's
That's
no
like a crazy Mark.
I think
Josh Cribbs is a legend in Ohio.
I think he has. I thought he's
no Zerlon.
He's done a nice job.
He's no Zerlon Tipton. By the way, the lowest moment of
Zerlon Tipton.
There's the lowest moment of Trent Richardson's career here that they didn't give him a snap.
That's saying something.
He had an illness that he missed Friday practice for, but it's like if Boom Herron missed Friday practice with an illness or any decent starting run back, he's still playing in that game because they need him. But instead they use it as an excuse to play Herron and Zerlon.
Well, and Herron, it seemed like Herron kind of got yanked after that fumble.
Which is weird because it wasn't an egregious fumble. It was a really nice play from behind and getting punched out. But
he had 2 fumbles, though, total.
Right.
He had 2 fumbles.
But Greg makes a good point. You think at that point, you're going to put Richardson in there to see what he's got.
No, you go to Zerlon.
And you got Zerlon. Someone shot out of him like a cannon from outer space, another dimension, suddenly is playing running back for a playoff team.
It's a little worrisome, and we'll get into the Broncos game, but it's a little worrisome how reliant they are on Hilton. Because I don't know if Nix made a great play on that 45-yarder, but Nix is not the speediest receiver in the world. Wayne is clearly not Wayne. It's just a lot of T.Y. Hilton, and the Broncos have a good secondary.
Reggie Wayne has hit the stage of his career, by the way. Growing up a huge Don Mattingly fan, by the end of his career with the Yankees, every time he would do anything, he would get a huge ovation by fans because he couldn't really play anymore, but he was just so beloved by the fan base. Reggie Wayne has hit that level with Colts fans now. He had 1 catch in this game for 12 yards, and they gave him an ovation like he just won the Super Bowl. Which is, by the way, good for Reggie Wayne.
See him again after this season,
I'm not saying that to denigrate Reggie Wayne, who's had a great career, but it just goes to show you that he's not even close to the same guy he was before he hurt the knee.
The Cam Newton extended family and the Reggie Wayne clan do not want to listen to this podcast.
How dare you?
Dan just tearing
that
down
really.
statues.
I feel like I gave a nuanced reasoning there.
Maybe you should. Yeah, you were basically giving credit to the Colts fan base,
yeah,
and they are one of the best crowds in terms of being smart. And they know that was probably it. That was probably his last catch as an Indianapolis Colt. The odds on him being back next year to me is very anywhere because he said he's not going to play anywhere else, and I don't think they're going to offer him much of a contract, and that's just how these things end.
Give that Colts crowd credit in terms of being smart. When the Colts are on offense, it is like the middle of the night on the ocean. You can't hear anything in there.
Well, who trained them? Peyton Manning.
Well, fair enough. But, Andrew Luck, by the way, and we talked about this, the loudest cadence at the line of anyone on the planet.
Well, Flacco's close. Flacco is great.
But
we need to do a power rankings
when there's not another sound in the entire building, it only makes it that much louder.
That's a good point.
All right, are we done talking about this game?
Yeah, let's.
Colts have any chance of?
I think they definitely do. Absolutely.
Let me finish my question. Winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, sure. It's about who gets hot. If Luck plays like this for the next 2 weeks, they'll get in there. What's that? I don't have a big problem with that.
I have very little faith in their defense, but you have to give them credit for what they did today, like we gave the Panthers credit for taking care of a bad opponent. They were all over the Bengals receivers. It's hard to see this defense winning a Super Bowl. But
NASCAR Trout, deep Scooby right, F short, switch salt swirl.
That's pretty good. That's a tongue twister too.
NASCAR Trout. Deep Scooby right, F short, switch salt swirl.
Always double down when you have the chance.
By the way, loved your nautical reference. Just surprised it took this long in the show to get to.
When's the Wilderness hit coming? It's got to be coming soon.
Sessler plays the hits.
We still have another game to review.
You're like the classic rock band that makes sure to get in the big hits in the encore.
That's not how I tend to view the podcast.
Like that was your like Born to Run. We're still waiting for Thunder Road.
Well,
all right.
You got your Browns.
You got your poor John.
Actually, you got your Browns reference in there. You got the nautical. So
well, you know what? You guys are laughing, but Rob.
We're just waiting for
gets
satisfaction
into
now.
Andy's coaching regime, and suddenly, bang, you're in the divisional round.
You connected us. All right, let's move on to the final AFC playoff game. Or actually, it was the first AFC playoff game. It was on Saturday, and it was jaunty. If you're a Ravens fan, Joe Flacco threw 2 second-half touchdowns, and the Ravens took care of business in Pittsburgh, beat the Steelers 30-17 on Saturday night. As I said, Greg, this was a surprise. Well, not surprising to me because I had a hero pick on it.
Wow.
And did I mention? And by the way, nobody said, "Oh, Dan, great job going 4-0 this week." Thanks.
Oh, great
job. These picks don't count.
Okay, I'm sure they don't because what did you go?
I don't even know. I don't even remember who I picked.
What did I go? Oh, this was the only one I lost. 3-1. There you go.
Thank you, T.
You will have the most hero picks on the year, so that's good.
Well, I'm thinking big picture. I'm looking to take you down for the whole season.
In the playoffs.
Yeah. Anyway, Greg, Joe Flacco outplayed Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers, it turned out that they did have that last egg in them, and Le'Veon Bell not being involved obviously plays a big part in that. But tell me, how surprised were you that the Steelers played so poorly?
I was surprised, but not after I watched the Ravens do 3 drives, because then you knew the Ravens' offense was back. I was very surprised. This was my confident call. I thought the Steelers were going to roll, but the Steelers...
Presented by TD Ameritrade?
That's right.
The official sponsor of
the Ravens
NFL?
Team, and 2 different Twitter followers pointed this out. They were like, "You've been loving the Ravens all year. Don't you feel stupid for not sticking with them here?" And I do, because they looked great from September to November, like a team that could go far in the playoffs, very balanced. That team was not around in December. Their offense was terrible.
And that was your whole point, that we want to ignore everything.
I'm a man of many contradictions, Mark.
Well, I thought, it
was ignore December, apparently. At least when it comes with the Ravens, you should have ignored December.
Well, you should have. I mean, I think we got a little cute on our preview of this game in discussing Le'Veon Bell and saying, "Oh, you know what? This is a perfect matchup. They don't need Bell. This is a perfect setup for them to deal with Baltimore's injury-riddled secondary." Well, you know what? You could have used Bell.
Well, of course. I think he's the best running back in the league. And you're right. We probably didn't take that into enough account. But I give the win to the Ravens offense, and I give the loss to the Steelers defense. The Ravens offense had 30 points in their first 8 drives. This was not a game where the Ravens just they looked like a better team and the Steelers put up a stinker. They looked like 2 completely even teams matching up, and Baltimore just made all the big plays. The 6 plays where, Flacco gets a touchdown on 3rd and goal from the 13. I mean, you expect that to be 3 points. Antonio Brown jumps, should have gotten his feet down in the end zone. Bad throw by Ben there. The Steelers were making all these long drives and then kicking field goals or not getting anything, and that's what killed them.
And maybe we should, now that we have another big win in January, this John Harbaugh, Joe Flacco pairing, these guys are business. They have never lost in their first round playoffs. They have a Super Bowl ring. Now they're hot, and they're going to New England. We're going to get to that during the week. We'll dig into that. But they have no fear going into Foxborough. They've won a game in Foxborough to get to the Super Bowl. They should have won a game if they had a better kicker another time in the AFC title game. This team is dangerous, and it's crazy because we were just talking about how they were playing so poorly, and it just shows you how quickly things change in this league.
My favorite throw of the week by far was the Joe Flacco toss deep to Torrey Smith.
Onions!
3rd and 1 at the Steelers' 34. You're up 8 points. All you need is a field goal. He has 2 guys underneath that looked open, and Flacco just doesn't care. He is aggressive every play of the game, and he goes for it, which seems like a crazy throw, and he throws a perfect pass to Torrey Smith, who doesn't get his feet down, and then suddenly people kill Flacco for the decision. Give me a break. It was a perfect throw.
Sexy deep ball.
Sexy deep ball.
Sexiest.
TD.
Completely.
Number 1.
He's
the best.
I usually don't give Flacco because Flacco has too much arm strength, so it
Yeah.
looks more like a projectile. It has too much power on
Okay.
it. But that was good. Cause that was
Well, how
deep.
about
That
Joe
was
Flacco's body language this time of year? It's got to be off the charts for you.
It's pretty good, man. His fans, his teammates love it. It's pretty good. Torrey Smith let him down on that play.
And
That's
people-
what let him
Right,
down.
and they still got the field goal that put him up 8. And look, you ended up winning the game, and he stayed aggressive. They were so aggressive all game. Like, if he's having a bad game, he's really aggressive. And if he's having a good game, he's really aggressive. It doesn't matter.
People laugh at like the idea that John Harbaugh said that Flacco is the best quarterback in football, and he's not.
He's
so
not.
Let's start right there. But it is fair for John Harbaugh, who's has a Super Bowl ring on his hand
I
because
get
of
it.
his quarterback.
Totally
Exactly.
get it.
And he's a perfect fit for this team.
Because put yourself in John Harbaugh's shoes, there's no other quarterback that you could imagine that you would not go into war with at this point because you know this guy's done it and you're completely confident.
And the quarterback that he beat in the Super Bowl 2 years ago is part of the reason that Jim Harbaugh was on the sideline watching that game
Nice
yesterday.
tie-in, Mark. That's a high moment for Mark, but we got to talk a low moment, Mark.
Yeah?
What is that?
Your Super Bowl pick is officially dead. You have the Steelers and the Saints both gone. Your thoughts?
Well, it's troubling. I mean, number one, the Saints pick turned out to be a reprehensible embarrassment. and another indication that we don't really know anything.
Factory of sadness.
That's a low moment for TD right there, who has apparently one button on his control booth.
Let me try to set you up a little bit.
Okay.
Are you down enough that maybe you need to take a walk in the wilderness?
No, I'm not going to go down that road. Nice try. A nice attempt on your part.
Oh, all right.
That's too bad.
But listen, Pittsburgh, and I remember people laughing at Dan when he said this a couple days ago, that they have one more ill-fated stinker in them, and it happened.
And Greg, you don't think it was necessarily a stinker?
The last 5 minutes were a
it's a
stinker,
loss.
but it was a big time loss. They got out.
Yeah,
at
let's
home.
call it what it is. They at home again in a game they should have won. They were playing great this entire last 2 months, essentially, with maybe one false start against the Jets and the Saints, obviously, those 2 games. But this team has been playing so well. They were a Super Bowl darling. You do wonder, though, we can't, the Le'Veon Bell thing, we got to go back to it. It's just that guy was the engine of that offense.
Well, I think their only way, obviously we didn't know this going in, but their route to winning this game was in a shootout. And they have the offense to do that. They would have had to win this game 35-31, and they have the team that they could have pulled that off, and without Bell, that wasn't going to happen.
One question, if you talk to a lot of Steelers fans, there is, at different periods, mounting frustration with Mike Tomlin. Is there any chance, it's too late in the season, maybe it's too late to reorganize, but was there any chance Tomlin could ever be taken out of that coaching position?
It wouldn't shock me.
This year, in the next month, I would be shocked.
I mean, it would be surprising, but there has been talk before that he's been read the riot act a little bit. This ownership is not one to make rash decisions, it'd be really surprising, but I don't think it's impossible.
Maybe they go get Sean Payton.
I think Dick LeBeau is a more interesting name to talk about because, they don't want to get rid of him, but it was on the defense to me. I bought into that they were playing better in December. Cameron Hayward looked good, Jason Worlds, and they were terrible in this game. They got no pressure. Troy Polamalu, I kept thinking, was that Polamalu? He finally makes a play, and then it was really Ross Ventrone.
That's depressing.
He's the guy with long hair on special teams.
You never want to be mistaken for a guy named Ross. Just in general.
Ventrone brothers, by the way. What's the other one? Ray? No, I forget. One of the more underrated brother pairings in the NFL in a long time, the Ventrones.
So what do we think about the
super underrated?
Greg,
that one fell.
Listen, it can all be hits.
Yeah, there's people out there that know what I'm talking about when the Ventrones are coming up, and they're like, "I love this Greg guy."
You can't get them off a roster. I mean, they have 9 lives. Those
Greg
guys.
is hilarious. Someone listening right now, Greg. Like I said, we're going to get into it during the week, but just 1 to 10, 10 being peeing your pants, 1 being I don't care about nothing. I'm awesome. Put my aviators on and walk away. How scared are you about the Ravens going to Foxborough at a spot where they have no fear?
I'm not scared of any teams playing the team I like. That's a silly word, I think. Scared.
What?
Well, that's a nice existence to be in.
Yeah.
I get
what
scared
does that
of a lot
even
of
mean?
teams.
What kind of answer is that?
The Ravens are a much harder opponent than the Colts or the Bengals would have been. They have a much better chance to beat the Patriots this week than I think the Colts or the Bengals. So in that way, I'd put a 5 or 6. In the other way, I look at it like...
That's also peeing your pants, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. Little trickles or whatever. I look at it like if the Patriots are going to go win a Super Bowl, you have to be a great team, and you're going to have to beat great teams, and you're going to have to beat a team like Seattle or Green Bay. So it's like if they're great enough to win a Super Bowl, then you can beat Baltimore. And if not, they'll just lose.
First occurrence of the word trickles on this podcast in 186 episodes.
Yes. Sunday night, Greg in a diaper. Tune in. But... By the way, I'm also happy that this is the first time in what feels like forever that the Patriots don't have an open walk-in invitation to the AFC title game. You're going to have to earn this, Gregg Rosenthal.
Yeah. You know what? It reminds me a little bit of 2003 where I think the toughest matchup they had was the divisional round game no one remembers against the Tennessee Titans, who looked primed to win that game, really played a great game. They lost a close one. Patriots survive it, go on to win the Super Bowl. Maybe that happens again.
And maybe it does, Greg.
Maybe
By the way, that guy is still laughing wherever he is. He's like, that Gregg Rosenthal.
The Ventrones.
Knee slapper.
Maybe I'm not the populist, Mariah Carey type guy that you are, but, there's some... Okay. I'm more like, the people that like the deep cuts, have a refined taste, little, indie rock.
Oh, so you're essentially reducing Dan to like a clumsy everyman.
Yeah.
Well, or a billionaire diva. I just don't follow the analogy too much. But, all right, so that's it. On that note, that is the wild card wrap-up. What is our schedule this week? What are we doing, Tuesday and Thursday?
Tuesday and Thursday. And thanks, by the way, for everyone who listened to our wild card preview. You guys made it our most listened to show in a long time, and we appreciate you guys sticking with us all the way through the playoffs.
TD, you did a great job getting that out there as well as the producer. I just want you to know I appreciate you.
I do, too. Mark's the one that does it.
No, I think, TD, you are a professional in every sense of the word.
Appreciate it, guys. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what
it
you
feels
need
like a setup, doesn't it?
But, fun show.
Thank you to the listeners. Thank you to TD. We will be back on Tuesday. Wes, I assume, will be with us because Wes will sleep with a smile on his face tonight. Westivus has come. This is Dan Hanzus signing off for the Sizzler, also known as Quiet Storm, and the boss, and of course TD behind the glass. Till Tuesday. Thank you for listening. Wild Card Weekend's done.
Third inning. Derek Jeter in first. Booyah!